This is Loch Katrine, and it's a little bit special.
It's arguably the birthplace of Scottish tourism, which is a good enough reason to bring you here, but I've kind of come here with an ulterior motive.
We'll get to that, but how did this place make Scotland famous?
In 1810, Walter Scott published The Lady of the Lake, and in 1819 he released Rob Roy.
And like pretty much everything else Walter did, it poured fuel on the fire of Highland tourism and Highland cultural revival, and slowly changed the way we viewed ourselves as a nation.
But even before that, artists and writers had started coming here, and now, if you come here, you can get a good idea why.
In 1780, they blasted a road here out of the rock to allow wheeled vehicles access to the loch. There were tourists here even then.
Around the same time, Lady Drummond, the local landowner, provided wicker huts, rustic shelters with bracken roofs, to shelter tourists from the elements, while they were inspired by this landscape behind me to create stuff. Loch Katrine would inspire William and Dorothy Wordsworth, Coleridge, Keats, Walter Scott.
It would inspire some dramatic landscape painting too. The kind of thing that still defines the way we see the Highlands today.
I've been here before, and I've heard about the area long before that. My granny used to tell me she loved the Trossachs, although at the time I couldn't help thinking they sounded like a nasty medical complaint.
The wider area takes its name from the Trossachs Glen. The word Trossachs possibly comes from a Brittonic root, meaning something like across hills, or possibly Gaelic, meaning bristly, both of which fit pretty well.
Down here is Trossachs Pier, and from here you can take a steamer that has been sailing on the loch since 1900 all the way around it, just to get that authentic Victorian tourist experience.
Last time I was here I made a video about the life of Rob Roy MacGregor, or what we know about his life. Rob was kind of his own spin doctor, until Walter Scott came along.
We do know Rob was born here, at the other end of the loch at Glengyle. Nowadays there's a road running part of the way around it, and in the summer you can hire a bike or walk around it, although it's closed to most cars. These days the loch is a major reservoir supplying Glasgow, and it's run by Scottish Water. Over there, quite a way behind me, is Factors Island, and at some point in Rob's career of ducking and diving, he imprisoned the Duke of Montrose's factor, his rent collector, out there, and forced him to write a ransom note to his boss. Then apparently let him go after a week, when the Duke refused to pay up. But what I didn't know until I started researching this video was that there's a viewpoint up here named after Roderick Dhu, Rob's accomplice, who would signal to him from up here, warning him of the impending approach of redcoats.
Now you can follow a walkway up to a 3-storey viewing platform and the outlook that inspired so many writers and artists. You can see examples of artwork and the history of the place, along with lines from The Lady of the Lake. It's an epic narrative poem with 3 main plots, and like most of Scott's work, it's very loosely based on Scottish history.
It tells the story of James Fitzjames, who's actually a fictional James V, roaming the land incognito. It's a love story with a family feud based on a real-life one between the king and the Douglas family. I mean, Archibald Douglas was his stepfather and he had taken him prisoner, so you can see how that might have been a bit tense. Like Romeo and Juliet, it has all the elements required to make people come to the area.
There's an island and a hermit. There's even a fictionalised version of Roderick Dhu.
When the poem was published, the tourism trade that had already started really took off, firstly with artists and writers. Then Walter influenced George IV to wear a kilt badly when he visited Edinburgh in 1822, and Queen Victoria and Prince Albert got into it with Balmoral. The nearby villages of Callander and Aberfoyle became tourist hotspots and expanded, and you can still see the evidence of that today in the Victorian architecture.
But I did admit to having an ulterior motive for being here.
In 1885, the Duke of Montrose, ever conscious of the tourist boom, decided it would be a good idea to build a road, and he didn't do it by half. The Duke's Pass is listed on most maps as Trossachs Road, which is really not grand enough as a title. It runs from Aberfoyle at the southern end towards Loch Katrine and Brig of Turk to the north. You pass through a landscape from lowland to highland, depending on which way you're going, and it's kind of hardcore Scotland.
It's said to be one of the country's greatest driving roads, so I wanted an excuse to come here.
Sometimes it's more about the journey than the destination and other assorted cliches. But then I got here and, well, you can keep your road.
But depending on which way you come, you get to see both anyway. People often ask me, what's your favourite place in Scotland?
I'm usually stuck. There are a few of them. But this place, when the light's like this, and it's cold, and it's pretty much deserted, have to be in my top 5.
But don't take my word for it. If you find yourself in Scotland, or if you're already here, I highly recommend you come and check it out for yourself, especially at this time of year. Just don't tell anyone.